The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, this is Rod Hodgman from Avoka, and welcome to our second webinar focused to the LiveCycle community. Today's webinar is Mobile Forms Options for Adobe LiveCycle customers. I'm with Angie Akamoto, who's a well-known, most of you probably know Angie. She's probably trained you. She's a well-known LiveCycle education specialist as well as community expert. Say hello, Angie.
Hi, Rod. Thanks.
Say hi to all your friends out there. I know you know most of them.
Hey, everybody.
All right, so Angie and I are going to do a little housekeeping, and then we're going to turn the session over to Howard Tradesman, our CTO, and Howard's going to take us through the various options that you have for taking LiveCycle forms and making them accessible on various smart mobile devices, smartphones and tablets. And let's get started first with the housekeeping. Some of you, because this is a little bit bigger than the LiveCycle community and Angie's group of friends, may not know Avoka. So we were founded in 2002. We're a global company. We have offices in Australia and Europe and the United States. And I say with pride, we are, really very strong LiveCycle experts. We estimate we have over 250 person-years of LiveCycle experience in terms of developing applications and doing very large deployments throughout the world of LiveCycle. And we've been recognized for that effort by Adobe as being a gold solution partner. We provide LiveCycle solutions, and you're going to hear some of that today as we talk about our own mobile offering for LiveCycle, LiveCycle services and application development, training and mentoring, and expert LiveCycle support. About this webinar, just to make sure you're all in the right place, this webinar is our June 14th webinar, Mobile Forms for Adobe LiveCycle customers, and we have our next one scheduled for June 21st, which is the Adobe LiveCycle ES3 Process Management Overview and Best Practices webinar, which will have the same cast of characters we'll be presenting to you as well. And if you want to register for that and you haven't, you can see the URL on the bottom there, www.avoka.com/uswebinars.html. That would take you to the landing page. And we're probably going to organize 2 more of these. The response has been very strong. And in our last webinar, we put out some polling questions about what other webinars you'd like to see. So we'll probably post a few new ones in next week, and we'll hit the email list and send that out. And if they're of interest to you, please join us. We'd love to have you. The agenda for today is we're going to start with a poll question. That's always fun to get you involved and do a little data collection and see where people are. For our last webinar when we were doing ES3, we did a poll question asking people what version of LiveCycle they were on. Then we'll hand over to, as soon as we complete the poll question, we'll hand it over to Howard for his presentation. Howard will hand it over to Jeff Kalicki, and Jeff's going to do a demonstration of SmartForm Factory, our ability to build once and deploy everywhere. And then we'll move into questions and answers. You also have a chat pod or a Q&A pod displaying on your computer. We urge you to type your questions into that chat pod, and as soon as you think of them, we're not going to answer them unless, of course, I can't hear or I don't understand or you want to raise your hand. But short of that, we're going to get to all the questions at the end so we can move through, and we'll make sure that we leave time to answer and address all of your questions. So what we're going to do now is we are going to do our first poll, and if you would all be so nice as to answer the poll, we'll launch it now. Angie, can you see the poll?
I can see the poll.
People are voting. Fantastic. All right. Just give it another minute or two. No, not a minute or two, but just 5 or 10 seconds. And, okay, I can see where we're going to end up here. So, all right. So let's see if we can successfully share the results of the poll.
Angie, they are being broadcast.
All right, beautiful. So what I see is the poll question was, where are you in your evolution towards moving towards a mobile strategy? And so 17% of the attendees are saying they need a solution in 6 to 12 months, 11% need a plan in 6 to 12 months, 42% are just starting to discuss mobile requirements, and 30% have no requirements for mobile at this time. What do you think?
Well, it's nice to see that people are starting to discuss it at least, although it's also a good indicator that people are starting to move forward with people that need a solution already.
Right. Great. All right. Well, thanks, everyone. That gives everybody, that gives you a view in this community of about 100 people as to, where you all are in terms of assessing your need and moving forward. And so now, with that, let's move forward on to Howard, and Howard's going to start the presentation of your options for mobile forms development. And here comes Howard. Thank you.
Thank you, Rod. Are you seeing that?
I am seeing mobile, tablet, smartphone, blah, blah, blah.
All right, so thank you very much, everyone, and thanks, Rod. I don't want to bore you with a series of statistics about how important mobile is, or a series of quotes from various people. I think everyone is aware of that, and how much the smartphone and the tablet has changed everyone's lives. So I'm not going to bore you with all of that. We'll take that as a given. What I would like to just spend a second is just guessing a little bit about who you are, because I don't know you all, obviously, although Angie might know a lot of your names. So hopefully, if you're joining this presentation and you did actually read the title, you're somebody who's familiar with LiveCycle and really loves LiveCycle. You don't have to be, but it'd help if you have some of that context. But you're probably also, a form designer of note, or possibly a business analyst, or possibly you're somebody who's familiar with acroforms, who's looking to move forward to XFA and HTML. You might be somebody from the business side of the organization, just trying to get an idea of how this new world works. You might just be an iPad freak, or possibly somebody who's just on their coffee break. But whoever you are, you're probably somebody who just wants to get moving with this new world, and I think about 70% of you, based on the last poll, are. So let's look at mobile phones and the iPad, and what is wrong with this picture. And what's really wrong with the picture is that, unfortunately, at the moment, it doesn't really work. And most of the forms that we're building today with LiveCycle, unfortunately, don't work very well, or work at all, on a mobile device. Kind of looking forward, what are your options? What are you going to do? How are you going to solve this problem? It's quite obvious that many of your users are going to start wanting to access your forms on those type of mobile devices, and the statistics actually say that mobile access to the web is going to exceed desktop access in the reasonably near future. So it's something you really need to be considering. And really, this part of the presentation is, well, what are your options moving forward? So your first option is Adobe Reader 10 for mobile devices, which is available now from Adobe. And the reality is that this on either small devices or tablets. And the reality is that this is okay for some forms, mainly acro forms. There are, however, some other limitations. There is no JavaScripting or other scripting support, which means no calculations, validations, hard show logic, no repeats or tables. It's not really optimized for a touch interface. It still presents like a traditional web or desktop style interface. The experience of using your PDF is more of a download the PDF and then access it in a separate area, rather than just an in-browser web-based experience. And typically with larger forms on narrower devices, you have to do a lot of scrolling left and right in order to actually fill in the form. So it does work in some circumstances, but it's not optimal. One of the questions is this likely to change in the future? And obviously we're not Adobe, we can't really say, but our understanding is that there are both technological constraints about cramming the whole of XFA form support into mobile devices, as well as some licensing issues with Apple that make that unlikely. Option number 2. You always have the option to build your form in native HTML, and there's nothing to stop you from doing that. However, there are a few things that you may want to consider if you're about to attempt that. The first is that if you do go down that path, you're going to have to build HTML forms and probably PDF forms as well. And that is to cover those users who do want a PDF version of the data entry form as well as a PDF form. Very often people want a PDF form as a document of record, something that both the customer can file away on their local machine and you can upload into your content management system. It means that building it in HTML means that you're going to have to acquire new skills, new tools. You're going to have to retrain. You're possibly going to have to hire new people. You're probably going to have to start looking at developers to design your forms rather than designers. That's a whole new skill set. You're going to have to learn how to build your forms to handle multiple screen sizes, which is a non-trivial problem. You're going to have to learn about touch orientation. So this is building user interfaces that are optimized around fat fingers rather than a very accurate mouse. And there are differences. One classic one is the drop-down list, which has a very small target area to drop down the list on a desktop, and a much larger area that you can point at with your finger, and an easier way of scrolling through the options on the list on a tablet-style device. You're going to have to get much better at your testing, and you're going to have to now start testing across multiple browsers and multiple devices, which increases time and effort. You're going to have to worry about, if you do build in HTML5, you're going to have to worry about how you manage that for older legacy browsers which don't currently support HTML5. So it's all the world saying build for HTML5, but what do we do on older browsers? We're going to have to learn new scripting, which is difficult. We don't have a solution on how to go offline on tablet devices. One of the beauties of PDF is you can enter or fill in a PDF form while you're offline. You're not going to be able to do that on tablet without doing something special, and Jeff will talk about that later. All of which translates into money and time, and what we'd like to try and do is see how we can do that more quickly and for less cost. So that was option number 2. Option number 3, Adobe have announced on a public forum that they are planning to make XFA forms, those LiveCycle forms, work on mobile devices. There was a post on LinkedIn by David Welch, a Senior Director of Engineering at Adobe, and he has promised that in Q4 2012, so the end of this year. We're actually very interested in what Adobe are going to be doing in this space, and it'll certainly be a fantastic way to take some of your existing XFA forms mobile. However, if you're building new forms, there may be some limitations. It may not be optimal. Obviously, we haven't seen what Adobe are going to do, so we can't be absolutely sure. But our suspicion from an understanding of what we know about the XFA specification is that there will likely be some limitations. Those include no reflow on narrow screens, so you're still going to have to do lots of scrolling left or right on small devices. You will be limited to the set of features that are currently available in XFA, so you won't be able to embed into your forms any HTML-specific features. It's possible that the mobile rendition of the XFA forms will only support a subset of features that are available in XFA, so you might have to do some tweaking to your forms and reduce certain features. It's also possible that there will be other limitations in terms of attaining compatibility at the document object model, some expression level, or at the JavaScript level. But the bottom line is that we're all very interested to see what Adobe do come up with, and Avoka will certainly be incorporating whatever they do into our offerings, because we do think that that's a very valuable option for taking your existing forms mobile. So that's Adobe's offering, which we'll look forward to seeing at the end of the year. And finally, we have the product that we're going to be demoing later today, which is Avoka SmartForm Factory for mobile devices. And at a very high level, the idea is that you build the form once, you embed in that the look and feel and the all of the business rules for that form. We can deploy that as either an XFA PDF form or as HTML. And on HTML, we support both desktop, tablet, and smartphone layouts. And we also support both mouse and touch orientation in terms of the way the user interface works. So that's just a summary, and Jeff will cover that shortly. Just to summarize again your 4 options. Option number 1 is Adobe Redirects for mobile, which is obviously low cost because it's already available for free. But it doesn't necessarily make the best use of the device as a touch style device, nor does it allow very high sophistication of the type of forms that you are going to present. Option number 2 is to look at Adobe's solution at the end of the year, which will on the server convert your XFA forms into HTML5 and allow you to render those on mobile devices. The cost does go up on that because you're looking, presumably, we don't know exactly, but presumably you're looking at requiring Adobe LiveCycle forms. You may already have that, in which case you can leverage it or upgrade, but if you don't have it, you will need to purchase that. Option number 3 is to build it yourself in HTML. And that has quite a wide range of device optimization and sophistication. It's up to you as to how you build that. The better you get at that, the greater the sophistication. Though we do believe that the cost will be high. And your 4th option is SmartForm Factory, which is both affordable and very high on the optimization and sophistication scale. Just before I hand over to Jeff, what I would like to do is just give you a little introduction to SmartForm Factory from an architectural perspective. And I'll take you through this very quickly. So down the bottom, we work from the bottom up. Down the bottom we have you, the form designer, assuming I was correct in my Who You Are slide. And you will use a tool called SmartForm Composer to actually build the forms. And for those of you who are familiar with LiveCycle, that will both be quite familiar in terms of the way that it works, but also hopefully quite a lot simpler. So you should be able to produce really stunning forms very quickly. We publish the forms that you develop in SmartForm Composer to SmartForm Manager, which would either be hosted by us on the cloud or by you on your own servers. And SmartForm Manager is the place that we manage and expose the forms to your customers. And we expose them in a variety of ways, either directly by plugging them in to your existing website if you want the forms to be just in various places on your existing website. We also have something called the SmartForm Self-Service Portal, which is a customized website that you can skin to your own needs that's specifically around servicing the needs of forms users. We also have some additional features in that self-service portal, for example, that allow you to find forms either using search or a guided experience. And the other alternative is that we do have an app that runs on Android devices, soon Windows, and also iOS devices that allows you to take those exact same forms that you've developed in Composer and deployed through SmartForm Manager, deploy them out to tablet devices, and operate those on the tablet in either connected or disconnected fashion. SmartForm Manager also provides a bunch of reports, integration into backend systems, single sign-on, and a bunch of other stuff that we'll cover briefly later. With that, I'd like to hand over to Jeff, so thank you very much.
Great. Thanks, Howard.
There you go, Jeff.
Okay, let me get my screen. You should be able to see my actual iPad now.
We do.
So since we're going to, the topic is obviously going through mobile forms for LiveCycle, what I thought we'd do is start with a mobile form, kind of take through a scenario of a user using the form, integrating that back into not only getting the receipt, putting that in, but also integrating that into a LiveCycle process and seeing that work. So that's what we'll do. So we'll start with we'll say we're a user of Finance Corp, which is a fictional company we've created that's in the finance industry that offers insurance and financial services. So they can come to a portal. Again, I'm just accessing it via the browser. So we can come to it, and out of it, you know, if you looked at what Howard showed on that the architecture slide, you know, there's some main features that are provided for the end users, whether those end users be coming in via a mobile device that is for the offline, so the actual mobile field worker app, or in this case, coming in via an iPad. But there's some basic things around finding the form, tracking the submissions of what I've done. So again, think of these as outside of workspace, so outside the firewall, if you will, to be able to come in and track where that lifecycle process is, where is my submission, what's going on with what's going on inside, and then also have the ability to have to-dos, so things assigned back out to me, or maybe I've got a form that I'm filling in that's taking me, you know, quite a while to get. Maybe there's requirements around attachments or signatures that I want to park and save and be able to come back to it. Maybe I need my wife's attention on the form. All of that is encapsulated into the feature set that you'll have for either the web portals we're seeing here, or the field worker app, or there's web development kit to plug it into an existing website and existing portals. So in this case, what we're going to do is actually open a form around a homeowner's insurance application. So we're going to click on that. Again, I won't take you through the finding of a form. Now, the first thing that we're going to see here is actually what we call landing page. Now, this is kind of unique in the sense that it's going to allow you to put specific definition around the form or service that's offered here, so I can, you know, make sure that this is what I want to go into. Maybe there's eligibility requirements and things like that. But you'll also see like the images over on the side. I can have cross offers that are in there that are based on the form. So maybe there's upsell opportunities or other things that I want to expose to the customer as they're coming into those forms, and SmartForm Manager is going to allow that to be dynamically delivered. And again, you can turn off the landing page if you choose. Another key feature on the landing page, if this is a public-facing form where we're not logging into a portal as we did here, this could be where your metadata and keywords are stored, where Google and Yahoo and things like that are going to pick up index. You know, it's optimized for those type searches, and then they'll land the customer there and either gather a login or let them go directly to the form. So in this case, we know this is the form we want. We're going to click Open the Form. That's going to open the form up. And again, you know, if you go back to what Howard said, you know, we had a designer. We designed the form once. We've got a PDF version of it. We've got a web version of it. And then, as you can see here, we've got a mobile version of it. So SmartForm Manager has actually detected the fact that I'm on my iPad, and, you know, visually on this form, you know, you may not see right away, but I can slide up and down with my finger, and then obviously on things like the type where it's a drop down, if I click that, it's already optimized that drop down to be for, you know, the fat finger, so it's a larger type spot there, and then obviously the control that comes up, you know, for me is optimized for the particular device. So I can go through the form. Now, another thing you'll note in the form, you see as I came into it, it's already grabbed my name and pre-populated that. Now that's because I registered onto the portal already, so it's able to pull that information in directly from what I registered and logged in on the portal. But it could also, you know, because we're integrated so tightly with LiveCycle, you could have LiveCycle pre-fill processes or even other kind of services, web services that are pre-filling forms. So you can string together as much information as you know to make the process of filling in a form that much easier for the person who's doing the application. So now I've got the information on that panel. I hit the next, and that's going to slide over into the next piece of information here. So I'll just kind of go through and fill in a little bit.
So Jeff, while you're typing, I just want to say to everybody out there that we're actually seeing your iPad. You're using software from Reflection, which is taking the screen of your iPad and putting it up on your Windows device.
That is correct. So that is, yeah, and we used to do this, and we've done it numerous times in the past, where we have the camera pointing down and people complain about having to look up my ugly hand on there. So, no, I'm just kidding. Now the downside is it does seem to be getting a little bit slow on the refresh because I'm way ahead on the form, so bear with me here. So you're kind of seeing what I'm going through on the form, a little bit delayed there. So as this is going in, all the things you would expect to see on the particular device around the the next button and be able to tab to the different fields, having the drop-down controls and all those kind of things are all built into the form. So now we go into the next section, and the thing I want to highlight inside of here, now you can see some best practices there with the red asterisk around required fields. But if I pull that up, if I come in and actually say, well, this field was, or this home was built in, the 1920s, you'll notice that it actually is going to drop a whole nother set of questions that we need to know about an older type home. Where if I came and actually, opened that up and said, well, this was built in, 2007, well, I don't need to ask about knob and tube wiring and other type of, older, that are only in older type homes, because the code enforcement, ensures the fact that that's not the case, right? So all the things that I would expect to see from a dynamic perspective are there. If I come in and actually say, like on roof status, if I say this was replaced, then it's going to dynamically come in and ask additional questions. Okay, well, when was it replaced, right? So the intelligence that you want to build into the form is there, and all the clutter that the person doesn't need to see because it may not pertain is not there, right? And so again, I can move to a next section, and we'll see the same kind of concept. If I say it's my secondary home, then well, how often are you? How many weeks per year there? If I come in and say that there are home-based businesses that are coming outside of this home as well, well, then it's going to give me options for that. I can say, well, I run a child care and maybe other, and I can define what that other is, right? But again, it's not on the form unless I choose that. So all the things that you would expect onto the form, all the intelligence can be baked in there. And again, we'll show this briefly at the end of the demo. We'll show how this is actually built and how you do that one design. But obviously, for anybody, we can set up a more detailed demonstration, for specific for you and for one of your forms. Another aspect of the form is, and I'll let this catch up. I'm a little bit ahead as I fill out. So I'm changing pages. And the replication software here for my iPad's a little bit slow here. So the other thing is the dynamic table. So you can see here, I can come in and say, well, I've got some furs that we want to. So these are additional items that I may want to cover as a homeowner. And these are things that you typically have to put into your type form, which can sometimes be can be a bit fiddly to work with, right? It can be kind of hard to make the dynamic nature, the pagination that goes along with it, and all the things that are required for that type of functionality can be kind of hard to do at times, right? But here it's very easy to go in and design, and it builds a nice interface for the end user as they're filling it in, right? So it gives them the, in this case, optimized for the touch type device, and it gives them, a nice interface to go in and define, the fact that we've got furs and rings. And I wish I had furs and diamond rings, but I don't. And then if I came in and actually said, additional items of coverage and want to delete those out, I can hit the little X on the side to take that off. So you get those kind of dynamic capabilities. So we'll come in, say we've got deadbolts, we don't have sprinkler system, and we do have burglar alarms. So we've got some discounts we're going to be able to apply to our particular form. And again, I'll let the form catch up here. We'll click Next, go to the next panel. And what we'll see here is, basically what we're going to do, because this is a mobile type device and the form warrants for it, it's going to actually allow for us to capture the signature and actually do kind of a sign on the glass, if you will, type environment for for this particular form. So we could come in and actually use the device, sign it. So there's my signature, and yes, my signature is actually that ugly. We can click Submit Now. And what this is doing is actually submitting it back to SmartForm Manager. Now, had there been any additional requirements that were defined into the form, so as a form designer, I can come in and define business rules that say, well, you said yes here, I need a copy of previous homeowner insurance, or I need a copy of the burglar alarm system that you've got in. So you can have those kind of attachments, rules, you can have payment rules, you can have digital signatures, electronic signatures, any kind of rules like that can be baked into the form itself, and SmartForm Manager would have enforced those at that time. So in this case, I didn't necessarily have any of that. So it came back, gave me a confirmation, so I got a nice confirmation that the form application has been submitted. I get a receipt. You can see the homeowner's insurance 4-29 is there, and that's something that's generated. And I've got a couple. One is actually to get a copy of the receipt, and one is to go see it online. So if I click the copy of the receipt, what it'll actually do right here on my device is actually pull down the flattened version of what we just filled in. So the experience that we just went through in a nice HTML5 form optimized for an iPad, now we're looking at a flattened PDF. You can see up in the top right-hand corner, it's form receipt.pdf, and it's got branded with the Finance Corp. It's got our logo, but you'll notice, the screen layout is completely different. I don't have the pictures of the, start here, the home, and all those kind of things. It's my form laid out, and if we go down to the bottom, again, a little bit slow here on catching up, but if we get down to the bottom, we'll see the signature that we applied in there as well. So again, this is that flattened form, that receipt that can be, not only for the person who's filling in the form to take with them, but also our document of record that we can now push back. And still waiting for the software to catch up here. There we go. So now you can see the signature at the bottom. So now what we're going to do is actually kind of change gears. So we've seen how we would experience that from a from an end user actually interacting with that mobile form. But what did that do in the back end? So let's go in, and actually we're going to change gears and be someone who's inside a Finance Corp working. And let's go in and look at what happened with that particular process. So there was a LiveCycle process that was defined. Actually, even on that receipt process, if that receipt would have needed to, gain welcome letters and other packets of information, like you guys probably do in a lot of your processes where you're taking templates and merging data from external systems, that could have been put into that receipt process, and you could have had a custom receipt. But in this case, we had our receipt. I got the submission in, and it's routed to the back end. And so actually, let's go. So I'm going to go back over here. Let's go to, we'll look at the submissions online, and we can actually see the one that we just did, and we can see the processing status over here. So we know it's been received by the organization. We knew that also by the fact that we got our confirmation page and our receipt number. But that's the current status that's being promoted to me. So now if we go to and change gears and go over to LiveCycle Workspace and look at what it might look like to process this on the back end. So I've got a process. It routed the form over to me. Let's go refresh that. We can see I've got a process here that I can click and open. So again, this is LiveCycle Workspace for those of you who use it. Probably looks familiar for those of you who don't. This is LiveCycle's BPM type tool, and again, we're looking at the flow of a process moving through. So the information that we captured on that interaction that we did on iPad has now been passed over into LiveCycle Workspace. Now, what we're presented with here is the PDF version of the form. So this is a fully editable, form that you can put, and again, you may not want them to be able to edit everything. You could lock off different pieces of the information. But again, from that one single design, we got the optimized form for the mobile device. We got the flattened receipt, and now we've got an interactive PDF that we can work with on the back end. And you can see at the bottom I've got approve or decline here. Now you also notice the attachments tab. I've got an attachment, and you see the receipt PDF. There's, along with the process, we're handing over, here's the actual document of record. You can see the signature at the bottom. And so that's actually going to be pushed into, our archive system, our document management system in there. So here, let's actually go in. I just got a couple of choices. It's a simple process for approve or decline. We'll go ahead and click on approve. And what that's doing is moving the process on, whatever my back-end process is going to be, but it's also going to notify the user out on the portal, whether they're coming in via the mobile device still. And so if we come out, actually hit go and kind of refresh that view, we'll see that record has now actually been approved. So in a real-time type fashion, instead of that person having to call a call center or wonder what's going on with their application, they're getting a portal that they can go in and actually see the status, and it's the status that you want to expose to that user. And so since most of you guys don't normally do this type things in demos, but since most of you guys are LiveCycle type people, we'll actually pull that process up and look, and you can see it's quite simple, going in, updating the status received, routing to one person for the review decision, and then based on the reject or accept, it's updating that status again. So again, I've got components inside of the LiveCycle workbench that's going to allow me to drive either to-dos, so new forms that I need to sign back out to an end user, but also take forms that were designed into the process and utilize them as I did here in the review step. And then the last thing I'll point out on the workbench side is this is kind of all the things that are being passed over to us as LiveCycle users from that process. So I've got everything from the actual form XML, so the entire XML, and I can traverse that XML, write LiveCycle rules against it. I've got the receipt PDF, any attachments. You can see I've got attachment metadata. All that kind of information is going to be passed into your process to be able to use. So really, really allows you to extend your LiveCycle processes to the outside world. So next thing I want to do, let's see, I'm going to open up my browser. And so let's go over and look at the field or the portal itself. Actually, I'm going to go to this one here and walk you through the website of this as well. So we'll do this one. We'll just look at the same form. So here I can come in. So again, now we're back on to the end user perspective, but instead of using a mobile device, we're actually coming in on the web. And we can look at our submissions. There's the one we just did again. But I can also come over and do the form process. And if I open it up, now what you'll see is still pretty much the same form, but now the drop downs are built for the mouse. They're built for the desktop. It's it's a desktop type form, right? But again, all the same functionality is going to be there. And it's all going to work. So if the user wants to start on the web and then come to the mobile, they can have that kind of capability and that kind of flexibility. Again, the design wants use anywhere, kind of metaphor is going to be there. Now, the other thing I wanted to show, so I'm going to go back over to the iPad again. Now, Howard talked about, we've got customer forms that are going to be used for mobile devices, but we also have the concept of field workers, or where I need to have forms taken and be used in a complete offline mode. So you'll notice on the bottom of the screen I've got an icon. So it's an application from Avoka that's provided called the mobile field worker. I can click on that, and that's going to allow me to log in. So I'm going to come in, put my credentials in. Again, I apologize about the delay on the mirroring software.
So Jeff, while you're doing that, we did have a question in the Q&A pod about how would this, while you were giving the demo, how would this work for the mobile field worker? So this is great, Steve. You're going to get a real view of how that works right off of Jeff's iPad right now.
Right. And so, when we come into the mobile field worker, again, now we've got a native application. So the things to keep in mind with a native application is it's going to allow me to go into a disconnected mode. So even though when we pull up this screen we see forms, submissions, and to-dos, and you think of that almost exactly what we saw out there in the customer scenario, but it actually is a little bit different. And here's why. So the forms themselves, think of that forms pod as really more what's in your briefcase. So these are the forms that have been built into your application that you're taking out in the form with it. So instead of having a folder with 50 different blank form versions of different type forms that you might use in the field, you synchronize those onto your application, and they're always there, and you can open up and submit submit new ones as you need. The to-do is really going to be more of an assignment. So these, as a field worker, I may be assigned different type of here's the 10 things, the 10 inspections you have to go do today, and there's forms associated with each one of those, and they'll be pre-filled with all the information that I would need to do, and I could use mapping and things like that are integrated into the device. That's the other thing that we're going to have with this type of application is integration to native features. So we'll see that. And then submissions, the difference here, instead of being able to track what's going on the back end, it's really for me to store locally until I get connected and pull it in. So what I'm going to do is click on forms. I should have done this already because it's so slow on the lag here. Click on forms, and we'll see a list of forms here that give us. There's an insurance application, so it could be used for applications, it could be used for assessments, visits, inspections, and things like that, home visits. And so what I'm going to do is actually pull up a home visit form, and hopefully this will catch up really quick.
The adventures of live demos.
Yeah. It's not catching up here. So let me. Actually, I'm going to exit that. I'm just going to relaunch it. Let's see if that works for us. If it doesn't, we'll improvise.
Well, one of the things I did do is in the pod, while you were getting that going, Jeff, in the pod, when Steve first asked this question, I dropped in a URL which will take you to the website page for the mobile form factory, mobile worker solution, and there's a bunch of videos on there as well that shows you how this works. So you also have that resource for you to take a look at.
All right. Well, I think what we'll do here is just pull up the old standby here. So let's just, I'm just going to...
That's great.
I'm just going to go on the fly here, and we'll...
So Jeff's changed technology. What he's doing here now, he's got a camera that's looking down at his iPad. So this is the
now
old
we get to
technology.
see his fingers.
Yeah,
you
great.
do get to see my fingers, so I'm going to go in.
I hope you got that manicure you were talking about.
Well, in the process of getting my camera, I just dumped a cup of coffee all over me, so that was attractive. So again, yeah. So again, we've moved into the form. We're in the offline type mode. So this is the form that I talked about going into, which was the field worker. So this is more of a government services person maybe going out and doing inspections for children who are in protective care. So the form, is very similar to the one we saw before, except now we've got a navigation pane on the left-hand side, and I can move through. But the unique things about the form themselves is going to be, I've got this location tab on the tab, which is going to show me, this is actually where I'm at while I'm doing this form. So I can hit confirm, and we'll see that the little highlighted pointer turns green. So I've now, as the field worker said, this is actually where I'm at while I'm filling out the form, so I can be sure that that's happening. If I come in and want to take, attachments, I can use things like the camera can click on the camera button. I'll pull that in. I'll just flip the camera around looking at my camera and ceiling fan. So use that one. So I can drop different things in there. And again, the form designer may have also gone in and said, I have requirements for attachments, and those would show up here, and you would fill those in with choosing files from the device or things like the camera. And then I could go over into the form and fill it out. You can even see, here on the form, I've got, take picture kind of capability in there. So I could use that. Well, that's not good. Hang on. Relaunch that. So I could use the camera in there. Oops. And then I could also come in and do, to do items that can be assigned to me to pull out. So if I open up a particular application that have been assigned for me to do, again, here's a different form. Same thing with the locations. But the big difference you'll see, again, is the submit and then also the delete capability up here on the top. So on this form, I could choose to delete it if this is something I'm filling out, or I could say, close it, leave it in my to-do, or actually submit it and put in place. I've got validation errors, so I need to fill out different things. So all the best practices around logic are going to be there as well. But once I submitted, that would actually submit locally and allow me to resynchronize when I get back into play. So if we come back out, if I go to my submissions queue, I'll see things that are waiting to be submitted back up to the server. If I look in the top right-hand corner, I can see the little X, which tells me I'm in a disconnected mode. So again, when we talk about the field worker application, what it's really there for is to enable, a mobile workforce to take forms out into the field with them and to have assignments form and to be able to go completely into a disconnected type environment. So that's really the big difference there. So again, apologize for all the trouble. So let's go back over. And now what I wanted to do, just real quick while we've got just a few more minutes, is just kind of highlight some of the things that you might go through to build one of these, right? So let's move over. I'm not going to go through the whole building process again. We're happy to do that for even one of your forms or anything you want to do. But I do want to highlight a couple things because there's some things that are quite unique and powerful to the Composer product, which is what we're doing to go into that. So here's the one form that we have. So again, we're into that particular form that I designed. The structure, if you look at this particular web-based tool, it's very much like Designer for those of you who are familiar with it. The structure on the left-hand side shows me what's in the form. The middle is really the wireframe. So kind of it's kind of like what the form is going to look like. It's not an exact rendition. And then over on the right-hand side is the palette. So everything that I can drag from the choices of widgets into the form and utilize. So a lot of similar concepts. But some of the power and some of the coolness of it, I think, is really to be able to come in and you can see from that one design up here in the preview where I can actually see the actual form. I can get PDF interactive, PDF receipt, HTML desktop. So if we actually just click on the interactive version of this, we're going to get a PDF form that's rendered out. So this, you can see it's in, inside of Acrobat, inside the browser plugin, and it thinks it's page 1 of 1. If I click next, the navigation is there. It still thinks it's page 1 of 1 because it's loaded in the right pages. So all the hard parts that you would normally have to code, navigation, the loading in and out of different apps, the best practices around validation and what needs to be filled in and being able to say, well, okay, go to that selected issue, puts the cursor in there. You can see the cursors there. All of that kind of thing is built into the product. I don't have to do anything to make that work for my PDF. And if I want to say, well, this is going to be used interactively on a desktop, there's an HTML version, and the exact same functionality is going to be there and work and enforced. And then the other thing that we saw was that concept of a PDF receipt. And so if I click on the receipt, we can see that comes up. And again, it's from the same design. The little house picture that you can see on the right, that's actually from our wireframe, but it's not on the receipt because it was told not to be there, right? It was just for the interactive pieces. So one design lets me get all of that kind of functionality And then, obviously we saw the mobile. We get the mobile rendition as well. So that's very powerful, I think, and it's a concept you don't see in most products. But another thing that is very common for those of you who build forms is you're asked to change forms, right? So you get it, you think it looks great, you show it to the business, and they're like, well, wow, we really don't use that kind of color scheme anymore, or I don't really want that navigation left and right. Could you just make that be a form top down? I can literally go in and just change things around the form. So you can see I just changed the structure, but I could also come in and say, well, I want to change to this brown theme as opposed to the blue theme. Change rounded corners versus not rounded. So any kind of those type things I can do on the fly, and then go in and say, okay, well, let's see what that would look like on an HTML desktop. And now I've got a top-down type form, built out there, for me. All the same things that are there, building the dynamic natures. All that's still in there, but I can re-swizzle the form, re-change the form. So things that your business owners may drive to you to say, look, I want this change and I want it quick. Sometimes it's hard, and sometimes you're even having to rebuild forms is really very simple to do inside a Composer. And then obviously we saw how it can reflow to different kind of looks in there. So the last thing I wanted to kind of do is just kind of summarize real quick some of the other things that we probably didn't cover in the scenario. So what I'm going to do is actually go into into a different web portal. It's got a form that actually Howard created, and look through it real quick, because it just highlights a couple of other features that I think are really quite unique, and it's probably going to answer some questions that you may have. So a lot of people ask, as I'm putting forms together, can I do rich text and different coloring and links and things like that? And as you can see, you can certainly do that. Pre-fill information is there. We saw that in the demo as well, so there's pre-fill coming over. The dynamic natures, again, I saw that in the demo, but different rendition of the exact same thing. This one's kind of unique in the sense these are things, again, easily done into the type form. And again, when I say into the form, this is really for the business doing this type of change as opposed to making an IT structure. But if I come in and put some different fields inside of here, what you'll notice is there was summations going on, so calculations, as well as taking everything that I've built into this and filling in this drop down, right, with Jill, Jeff, Bill, and Todd. If I come in and actually take Bill out of there, now it's just Jeff and Todd and drop down. These are all things that can be coded and done into a form, by the business. Some other things that you can do is other services around, maybe I've got to find a particular address, so I could come in and use services like here we're pulling in we'll pull in my address there. My address is really long, so drop it in. But now I've kind of pulled in the exact address that's in there. And then, we've shown some, well, this is actually a lookup on the back end, so I could call web services and things like that from the back end. So I could search for Joyce in this case, and I bring back some additional information that I might want to use into the form. And then we didn't show, but, I could come in and say, based on, I checked this, I now need additional documents that are going to be attached. And then I could also say, I'm going to have a payment. And then we saw how we could sign now, but I could also do a wet signature kind of concept. And if I hit submit, I'm submitting that to SmartForm Manager, and now it's going to start invoking all those type rules. So now it's coming in and saying, okay, I need a pay slip, I need proof of identity. In this case, it's been told I could actually deliver that manually, which brings it into the office. So now I've it's tagged the workflow to be looking for it. I'm going to come in. But now it's coming in and saying, okay, I need a payment. So it's got integration to payment gateways. So you wouldn't want to put that into your form. So I could actually go in. We've got it tied to a dummy one here. But I could make payments. That's going to make payments. And then finally, it's going to allow me to download the particular form, sign it, re-upload it, or bring it into the office. So all the things that you're going to need to do into a form are there and have been baked into the form. So to close, really, if I could impart anything on you, there's three main things I think that are key with SmartForm Factory. One is we're going to empower the business to create these type of applications and make changes quickly. So it's really like content management for forms as opposed to making it all a 100% development exercise. The deployment around everything you're going to need from attachments, business rules, signatures, all that's built into it, and it's designed once and deploy wherever you need to go so your customers can really interact anytime, anywhere with whatever devices they're looking to do. And this all is going to result into ROI on everything you do. There should be, when you take something off of paper or off of a print and fill type process and get it automated, there's always ROI involved with it. So they generate these type things pay for themselves really quick, not to mention you're going to have reduced errors, reduced cycle times, quicker time to market for this type of solution, and then obviously hopefully you got a taste of some of the tools and how quickly they are. So again, I welcome the opportunity to share more detail with any of you guys specifically if you've got requirements or forms. I hope you enjoyed the demo, and again I apologize for the delay on some of that. Thanks.
Thanks, Jeff. That was terrific.
Okay, start my screen.
Excellent. Okay, so Angie, here we go to the fun part. So we're wrapping up our session here, and if you have questions, now's the time to feed all your questions into the demo pod that you want us to answer. But in the meantime, we want to ask you guys to rate this webinar. We want to make sure we're delivering information that's of value to you and that it's a good use of your time. Or if it's not, we need to know that too, and we'll re-instrument and redirect and try to give you the better information. So that would be great. We'd really appreciate that. And again, I encourage you to enter any questions into the question box. And while I'm doing this, the guys are going to look over the questions that we didn't answer. We answered a lot of questions during the session, and so you can all go in there and see the answers that we provided for during the session. Well, come on, I'm not seeing the share button. All right. Well, you've all filled this. You've done a nice job of filling out this survey. I appreciate it very much. And guys, I'm going to ask you if you can look in the question pod and find out if there are. It's not what I wanted to do. If you can find out if there are any questions that we want to answer. Take online now. So we got some at the bottom. I haven't looked here. So here's one. Does the Form Center rely on...
There are some new ones that have come in that haven't been answered.
All right. You want to pick them off, Angie?
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. My leg just didn't catch up with you fast enough.
So I'm looking down at the bottom. Does the Form Center rely on any LiveCycle modules to be purchased, or is it all included? Oh, I'm sorry, Jake. You answered that. We can include LiveCycle modules if those are not there. Yeah, we have a bunch of different configurations, John, ranging from virtually no LiveCycle to a full use of LiveCycle. As you saw in the demo today, we were using the process management to be able to do those workflows and route those documents around, as well as a very common module that we use when we're doing HTML is we use the output module to generate the document, what Jeff was calling the documents of record, or otherwise the receipts. Those are really, really valuable. Is this product available now and cost? It's available now, and we'll be happy to contact you and talk about cost. Tony, it's been available for quite some time. Well, the SmartForm Factory is probably about 3 years old. Its growth and iteration has gone through. First, we focused exclusively on PDF for the first part of it, really focused on making the development and deployment experience of PDF forms for LiveCycle really more efficient, more affordable, and giving organizations more agility. And then over time, we moved to expand out to be able to provide this develop once, deploy anywhere capability to give you, really just an amazing capability to get onto any mobile device. Are there any upcoming webinars demonstrating the data dictionary? No, but we could build that one in. You know, what we were thinking about today is what you didn't see is how you could build you know, we didn't go in depth as to how you would build this and what's involved in building this and the productivity. So one of the webinars that we're considering is to, this is answered as Craig, is to go into more of an in-depth look. Let's show you how easy it is to build these. And if we were to do that, we'd go into the data dictionary capabilities of the product, which is a pretty neat aspect of the product. This one's out of my league. I only have LiveCycle Designer ES 8.2. Will this product work with that? I don't have Workspace or Workbench.
Yeah, and so I'll jump in there. So it doesn't require the need for Workspace or Workbench, so you can certainly take full advantage of it. If you have forms that you've built inside of you know, LiveCycle Designer that you want to deploy into SmartForm Manager to take advantage of and allow your users to work with that PDF form, you can certainly do that. So yes, it does work with that. And then obviously I showed you how to, and can show you even more in detail how to build forms with Composer, which will give you all the HTML and all the other things that we demonstrated today.